Story. Once upon a time. This is time for another story. And this story that I'm going to tell us is something that happened when I was in secondary school. Like I told us, I've had a lot of mysterious events in my life. So when I was in secondary school, I and my friends were so mischievous. So mischievous. What I mean is, when we go to school, we don't like attending the assembly. Yeah, in order to avoid the assembly, we don't stay in the classroom. Sometimes we hide inside the classroom. Sometimes we don't. We just leave the classroom, and we know we cannot run away from the school, but we just hide ourselves inside the school compound. And that school was so large. It was very large. It has primary school inside it. It has secondary school inside it, both boys and girls secondary school inside it, and a lot of other buildings, that we can't really tell. So whenever we hide inside the school compound, and the school compound was covered with bushes, thick bushes, thick grasses, we'll try as much as possible to go inside those thick bushes, to hide ourselves inside there. We'll just sit down on the floor and be covered with the grasses. So one day, while we were there, we heard a teacher's voice coming inside the bush to look for students. So we started running inside the bush, and while we were running, we all scattered. We went different directions. So I ran towards somewhere else, and others, we went all in different ways. So I got to a place where I saw a bungalow, and that bungalow was covered with grasses. You can tell that that house hasn't been occupied for ages. But on getting there, I saw a young man. He was bare-chested and put on a black trousers. A very young man. He came outside from that bungalow and wanted to brush his teeth outside that house. So when I saw him, I wanted to run, but he looked at me and looked away. So I greeted him to avoid him scolding me. He just nodded his head, and I kept on roaming around that bungalow. And there was lots of mango trees around there. So I asked him if I can take some mangoes that fell on the floor. He just nodded his head, and I picked some, and I remained there. And after brushing his teeth, he went inside that building, and another guy came out again to brush his teeth. And this person, when I greeted him, he didn't respond, he was looking at me angrily. So because of his face, I had to get up to go and look for my classmates and my friends. So I kept on wandering inside the bush until we all met each other. So when the rest saw me with mangoes, they were like, "Where did you get this mango?" I told them that where I was hiding, there were lots of mango trees there. So we all agreed to go there the following day. Now the following day when we came, we didn't even wait for anybody to pursue us. We just went straight inside the bush, and I took them to that house. And when we got there, the mangoes were on the floor as usual, so everybody was just picking. And they asked me, "Where is the guy you say that you saw?" I told him the guy is in that building, that there were two guys living inside the building. Out of curiosity, my friends decided to go there. And I told them to come out. These guys, one of them wasn't happy with me, to avoid them maybe flogging us or something like that. They said no, that they wanted to greet them also and take permission from them before they can pick the mangoes. So they went closer. When they got closer, they knocked on the door for minutes. Nobody opened the door. They started peeping. They started moving around the bungalow, started peeping. And then they called my attention and asked me, "Which bungalow did you say that you saw those guys?" I told them this particular one, because there is no other bungalow around there. And they asked me to come closer. And I went closer and I peeped. Do you know that inside that house was covered with cobwebs? When I mean cobwebs, I mean thick cobwebs, black cobwebs. All the furniture in that house, you can't even see any furniture. Everything was covered with dust and cobwebs. There was no sign of life inside that bungalow. But meanwhile, that was the bungalow I saw. The young man came out, brushed his teeth, and another young man came out, and I greeted him and he didn't respond. So when we saw that there was no life in that bungalow, nothing as in nothing. It was an abandoned building for years. So out of fear, we all ran away. Now when I got home, I didn't talk about this until when I was done with my secondary school. So when I narrated this event to my mom, my dad, my elder brother, and they told me that during the war, that the soldiers were living within that school premises, that school premises was a kind of a camp for soldiers, that they were all living there, and that all of them, from what they heard, all those soldiers living there didn't make it, they didn't come out alive. So when I heard that, I got so scared. And then when I now remembered everything we saw while there. We saw helmets, helmets like something that has been there for ages, for decades. We saw helmets, we saw boots that has been destroyed by rain and sunlight. We saw like bags, like knapsacks, that has been destroyed, like they were no longer strong. And then we saw bones that we couldn't really tell if they were human bones. At first, what we called them was animal bones. That was what we called them. But it was after listening to this story from my parents that I got to realize that those bones were human bones, because they were so long. You can tell that the bones were from the leg. They were so long. Now, when we went deeper, what made us to stop coming was when we went deeper into the forest, away from that building, we saw human skulls littered everywhere. We ran away. When we didn't know what happened, we just left, but we never came back there until I heard this story from my parents. And now that means the two guys that came out that I greeted were maybe one of the soldiers there during the Nigerian Biafran War. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna see us next time with another story. Stay tuned.